Thank you, Madam President. I wish to move an amendment in my name that has been circulated. I don't want to be right here, right now, to have to stand in this chamber to deliver a condolence speech for a little girl in my family. Sharon Nampijunpa Price. I'll read her name into the history books today in her honour. She was 5 years old. She was loved. She should still be here. I think about my late brother, Leonard, who passed away too young, before he had a chance to grow into adulthood. In our culture, he would have been one of her other fathers. I find myself wondering whether things might have been different if he had lived, whether he would have been able to protect her. The only comfort I can take from these circumstances, believing that she is now with him and so many of our family who have been taken from us too soon, the only comfort I can take is that they are with our Heavenly Father now. But there is no escaping the reality of what happened. My niece's life was taken senselessly, selfishly and horrifically. And the hardest truth of all is that for many in my hometown, none of this came as a surprise. That the truth is that people do not want to speak this out loud. For too long in this country, there has been silence around what is happening in too many town camps and remote communities. A silence driven by fear. A fear of causing offence, a fear of being labelled racist, fear of speaking honestly about dysfunction, violence, alcohol abuse, neglect and conditions vulnerable children are growing up in. That silence is killing our babies. And when I say our babies, our people, I mean Australians. My niece was a little Australian girl. Yet there is an ideology in this country that has deliberately encouraged people to treat children like her differently because of her racial heritage. It's that same ideology that has created a hands-off culture within parts of a child protection system. An ideology that too often places cultural sensitivities and political correctness ahead of the safety of children. The same ideology that reveres organisations, bureaucracies and so-called leadership structures while vulnerable women and children continue to suffer behind closed doors. It's the same ideology that teaches people to stay silent in the face of wrongdoing because speaking honestly might offend somebody. Well, I'm no longer interested in protecting adults who feel uncomfortable about truths while children are being buried. As more details have emerged around my niece's death, Australians have learned that multiple warnings were reported, made in regard to her safety, and these warnings were not acted upon adequately. They should horrify every single one of us in this chamber and across this country. And let me say clearly that this is not an isolated case. For years I have raised concerns about the failures within child protection. I've spoken to foster carers who've raised loved ones, Aboriginal children from infancy, who've seen them placed back into dangerous and dysfunctional circumstances. I've spoken to police officers, social workers, paediatricians, frontline workers who have watched children be re-traumatised over and over again in a system that's supposed to protect them. And every time these concerns are raised, those who attempt to shut down the conversation, they say now is not the time. They say we should not politicise tragedy. But as my niece's aunt, I have an obligation to fight for justice in her honour. And as a parliamentarian, the very reason I chose to come to this place, I have an obligation to fight for change. So that fewer families endure what my family is enduring right now. Condolences become empty when they are accompanied by excuses for inaction. Condolences become hollow when difficult conversations are avoided in the name of cultural sensitivity. while vulnerable children remain exposed to violence, abuse and neglect. And I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired of governments announcing billions of dollars in spending while conditions on the ground continue to deteriorate. I'm tired of hearing about symbolism, acknowledgements, gestures while children continue to grow up in unsafe environments. Housing matters, but housing alone is not going to solve this crisis. Building another house means nothing if violence, alcoholism, abuse and neglect continue unchecked inside these homes. We've got to be honest. We've got to admit this. And town camps, many people romanticise, have become places of entrenched dysfunction, places where alcohol restrictions, they exist on paper, but they're routinely ignored. Places where overcrowding, violence, criminal behaviour have become normalised, places where vulnerable women and children are too often left unprotected. And while billions continue to flow through Indigenous programs, organisations and bureaucracies, Australians are entitled to ask a simple question: where are the outcomes? Because right now the outcomes are not there. We cannot continue hiding behind race. We cannot continue pretending that lowering expectations for Aboriginal children is compassion. It's not compassion, it's neglect. It's the racism of low expectations. It's become deeply embedded in parts of our institutions. And Aboriginal children are treated as though they should tolerate conditions that would never be accepted in any other child's life in this country, and this must end. Children deserve safety before ideology. They deserve protection before symbolism. Children deserve love, stability and education, opportunity before political sensitivities. And yes, culture matters, but no child should be sacrificed on the altar of culture or political correctness. No child should be left in danger because adults are too afraid to intervene. No child should lose their life because governments lack the courage to act. We need, at the very least, a serious inquiry into the failures that continue to place vulnerable Indigenous children at risk. We need scrutiny of how this money is being spent. We need stronger accountability across organisations responsible for town camps and service delivery. We need child protection systems that prioritise safety above ideology, and we need leadership prepared to speak honestly about these realities. Most of all, we need courage. Courage to stop pretending. Courage to stop hiding behind slogans. Courage to stop treating honesty as racism, because the cost of silence is now measured in the life of my 5-year-old niece. Sharon was not a statistic. She was a child. She was part of my family. She was part of this nation. She deserved the same safety, dignity and opportunities every Australian child deserves. And if her death does not force this country to confront the truth, then I fear we will continue failing the next little girl, and then the next, and then the next one, and then the next one. I don't want another family to stand where mine stands today. I don't want my family to continue to stand where my family stands today. I don't want to bury another child from my own family. I want this Parliament. I don't want this Parliament to offer condolences while refusing to confront the conditions that made those condolences necessary in the first place. I want this Parliament to put aside our political differences and stand up for what's right for our children. This is what we're here for. This should be the most important thing that every single one of us is here for. To put aside our differences and to put our children first. That is what we need to do. And that is all I ask.
Thank you, Senator Nampijunpa Price. Senator Waters.
Thanks very much.